Thank you for checking out this episode of the 80/20 Real Estate Show. This episode kind of picks up with a rolling conversation between Matt and I, but it's an awesome conversation. He's very, very high level as far as volume that he's done in his real estate career, and he's a big advocate of the 80/20 principle and lives by that. We talk everything about systems, processes, hiring, and I think that you guys will be able to take some valuable pieces of information from this. And Matt just has an interesting way of kind of changing the rules to his favor in business and capitalizing on that. He gives a few specific examples, and I think you guys can glean some insight from that. So thank you for checking out the episode. Let me know any feedback that you have. Have an awesome day. Well, we're rolling here. Matt Larson, man, how you doing?
Good. Thanks for having me.
Dude, a pleasure. I'm glad we got the lighting adjusted behind you there for those watching on YouTube. It kind of looks like Matt's an angel with all the lights coming in from behind him.
Yeah. So hey, I'm literally, so I have an 18,000 square foot office. It's in Davenport. I live in Bettendorf. Davenport's a neighboring city, but this room that I'm in right now was a room that was above. I have a 4-car garage, and then I have a 2-car garage. This is above my 4-car, and I'm converting this room into kind of my studio, because I never go to the office. So that's why we literally put this together in the last few days. So that's kind of why the lighting might not be perfect or whatever, but we're working on that. So
no, man, looks good. I think that's a camera behind you right there.
Yeah, I'm setting up. I've got a whole station over here that's going to be where I film a lot. Well, every time I film something and produce anything, then we'll film here. So we got the camera set up and a bunch of other stuff around. So
nice, man. Well, I think this transitions nicely into getting an idea of what you're doing now. When I make the title for this podcast, it's going to have some pretty audacious big numbers on there as far as volume you're currently doing, what you've done in your career. But Tell me a little bit about, what type of content you're making or what type of stuff you look to do in the studio, why you're getting on some podcasts here.
So, a few, probably, 4-6 weeks ago, I was, we're really big on virtual assistants. Okay. And I've used virtual assistants in my company for about 5 years, and we've got 5 full-time virtual assistants right now, and they're amazing. And I mean, maybe we're just really good at hiring and finding them. We just don't let anybody in our company that isn't amazing at what they do. They just don't make it. So I was growing all these people that are working the company virtually. And I was thinking like 6 weeks ago or so, I was like, we've got a pretty amazing, compilation of training that we've created for ourselves for these virtual assistants, like literally step-by-step how-tos. And so 6 weeks ago, I was like, I wonder if anybody else has anything that I can learn from. Maybe there's some books out there, some training out there that I can buy that would help me in my business with my virtual assistants. And I started looking, and I bought some stuff, and I was like totally disappointed in what I was finding. So I was like, man, it seems like I got the best stuff there is out there. And maybe I just wasn't finding it. So I literally came to my team, and I'm like, hey, we're going to create a product out of this virtual assistant training that we've built. So that's what I did. I literally kind of launched it very, very quickly. We already had the product built because we were using it in my own company. We just kind of made it look fancy into one big file, and we launched it, and it kind of went nuts. So a lot of people bought it. A lot of high-level people bought it. And next thing I know, I'm getting some really, really high-level people giving me feedback that's like, hey, man, this is amazing stuff. So I decided to really get serious with the education side of things. I spoke for years and years and years. I traveled the country, and kind of stopped doing that in 2012 because I kind of got burnt out on it. And now I guess as the timing's right, I flip a lot of houses, and I'm not actively involved in my company. I work about 5 hours a week in the flipping business, and my company runs runs everything without me. I just kind of like look at the high level KPIs and high level, everything that's happening on a very high. I mean, I'm looking at just a few statistics typically. So So I don't ever have to go in the office. In fact, I had some people come in out of town that wanted to view my operation. We can kind of get into that a little bit later if you'd like, but some people wanted to come into look at my operation last week, and I hadn't been there. I hadn't been to my office in 6 weeks. So I've really, really dialed in the whole how to run a big company, how to have it produce a ton of revenue and do a lot of flips and not have to do the day-to-day thing. And I didn't think it was possible. I literally like dreamt of the day that I could get to where I am right now. It's pretty cool.
Super, super cool. A lot of stuff that you just said, and like I said, alluding to whatever I'll decide to make the title here for the podcast and the YouTube video, you're at a very compelling and desirable vantage point to a lot of investors, a lot of people that may be listening to this episode. I want to hear about that company that you're launching. That's the first time I hear about it, or that you launched. Mm-hmm. And then we can kind of talk systems in general. And I kind of want to get a snapshot of kind of the numbers and volume your business is doing. So we're kind of going from present, and then we'll loop back to all the good stuff, how you got into real estate and everything like that. But I don't want to have listeners wait. Tell me about that course or product that you have around VAs. And then let's talk a little bit about what your business is currently doing now to give people that idea.
So what I did was, like I said, I have 5 full-time VAs. We're actually looking at, we're interviewing 3 more right now. We're adding 3 more. And so what it is it's a step. So here's let's just take a step back. What's the biggest, everybody wants virtual assistants. Everybody loves the sexy idea of having somebody else run their company. The problem is nobody really has figured out the training part. So what happens is they hire a virtual assistant, they don't train them well, and then it fails, and they're like, well, virtual assistants, they just don't know what they're doing. They're stupid. Mm-hmm. And that's just the wrong attitude. So what happened, that same kind of thing happened to me. 12 years ago, I read the book 4 Hour Workweek, and I fell in love with that whole concept. I'm reading the book, and there's so many great, everybody's read that book, and there's so many great ideas in that book. But the one thing I fell in love with was the whole virtual assistant thing. So I ran right out, hired my first virtual assistant, had no idea really what I was going to have them do. And then even worse, I didn't have them trained. So I say, hey, help me with, running comps on this property, and didn't get, spent like literally 3 minutes with them on how to do comps, which was just terrible. And of course I got a really bad result from that. And so I'm like, man, these virtual assistants, they don't know anything. And that's a great idea, but conceptually it'll never work. So I kind of just left it alone, walked away, because I was hearing so many other people that I was, anybody that I would meet or talk about virtual assistant, they all had the same experience. Man, it's a great idea. We tried it, but the virtual assistants was a waste of time. I spent all my time managing them. I could have just done it faster myself. So fast forward, that was 12 years ago. Fast forward about 5 years ago, we run. So I have a pretty big company that owns a lot of rental properties, and I'm very, very anal about vacancies. I don't like houses sitting vacant like anybody does. And the biggest thing about filling vacancies is they don't fill themselves. You have to market the crap out of these things, drive leads, show those, screen those leads, show those leads the property, and get it filled. And if your phone's not ringing, or people aren't reaching out to you to want to see that property, it's stuck, it's vacant. So I had 2 people in my office at that time that were they had a lot of different jobs, but part of their jobs was to make sure they got on Craigslist every day and listed our vacant properties. And I'd be walking through the office and I wouldn't hear the phone ringing, and I'm like, that's an immediate sign something's wrong. So I'd go online and look at Craigslist, and I'd see we don't have any ads running. And I'd go back to the girls, hey, what's going on? Why aren't the phone's not ringing? We got these vacancies. Where's the ads? Well, Matt, I'm busy doing this. I'm going to get to that in a minute. And so they were always busy with something else. And the Craigslist thing was basically a side project for them, and they never got around to it. Or if they did, they weren't consistent. And so I was so frustrated. These girls were probably making, off of memory, probably $15 an hour, let's say. So I got so frustrated that frustration was like, you know what? I'm just going to hire a virtual assistant. This stuff is so simple. It's so repetitive. It's so easy. I'm going to hand this off to a virtual assistant. And we had built a little training program on how to do Craigslist ads for the people in my office. So it wasn't hard. It was just systematic, and you just had to do the work. So I take that, get my personal assistant that I had working with me. I'm like, hey, start looking, go on Upwork.com. Let's put an ad out. Let's see if we can find a virtual assistant that we can hire. They're like $2 an hour, and let's have this girl list Craigslist ad. Houses for rent on Craigslist. Now, we just side note on that, we don't just list on Craigslist, we list our vacants everywhere, but Craigslist still generates a ton of leads if it's done right. If we're doing everything minus Craigslist, we still get half as many calls. So, Craigslist is kind of like, some people hate it for running ads, but for us, it still works. So we hire this virtual assistant, we hand her our training. And the next thing I know, well, first of all, we hit a snag and it didn't work because she's in the Philippines. Now, keep in mind, I'm brand new with virtual assistants. I don't have any training. I really don't know what I'm doing. Okay, let's hire a virtual assistant. So we hire one, we get her started. She tries to post the ads and none of them show up. They're all getting ghosted or blocked and deleted. So we're like, what the crap is going on here? So we figured out that she was trying to post them from the Philippines where she was located. So we had to add a step. We were like, okay, how do we get the IP address to show up here? So we put a computer in our office that she logs into. Now she's got an IP address in our office and she posts the ads, and it crushed. 5 years ago, I have not messed with Craigslist ads since then. And that chick, that virtual assistant, is now moved on. She's now doing other stuff for us in our company. When I decided to move her up, I had her find and hire the next virtual assistant that took her place. And it's so systematic, you don't think about it. So that's when I got really, really serious, like, whoa, wait a minute here. This worked so good. Why am I not doing this in all these other? So over the course of a couple of years, I hired another virtual assistant, figured out stuff that I could take off my plate. I could take off other people's plates that are my company. Boom, crushed. Same thing again. And then every time somebody would either get let go from my company or leave, we just backfill with a virtual assistant. And what we found was we could get so robotic with virtual assistants that I could replace 2 of my in-house people, American workers, in my office with one virtual assistant.
That's amazing.
And the reason why is, one is it's so process driven. American workers, their worst trait is discretion. They think that they can solve things on their own. Virtual assistants have no discretion. Their discretion is their only job is, here's a system I follow. If I do this step by step by step, I get the result I want. And so because there's no discretion, there's never I know Matt said to do it this way, but this time I think I'm going to try this because I think that might work better. Virtual assistants never have that. It's kind of like writing computer code. If you get somebody that writes computer code and they're really smart, and you buy let's say you buy a brand new Mac computer, it is the top of the line computer on the market. It's the best of the best. Then you hire a computer programmer to write code to get a specific output. And the code he writes is bad code. And when he hits enter, it runs the program and it fails. The program shuts down and it doesn't do the result. That analogy is the virtual assistant, that code, the computer's not the bad thing there, right? The computer didn't mess up. Mm-hmm. It was the code you put in the computer that didn't work. That's the same with virtual assistants. A virtual assistant is the computer. The process that you write for the virtual assistant to do the task you need done, that's the code. So it's on you. If you give a virtual assistant a task and your task is incomplete, if your process is incomplete and you skip a few steps and that virtual assistant gets confused or gives you a product at the end of that isn't right, that's your fault. That's not the virtual assistant's fault. So that's what we discovered, is our processes became so good that we could make anybody a rock star. So I took originally 5 years ago, I took two $15 an hour employees, replaced it with somebody I was paying $2 an hour for, got a better output, and never thought about it again. To this day, I've never said, hey, why isn't the phone ringing? Why don't we have leads coming in? It worked so well on the Craigslist side of things that people were coming into our office, other competitors, other property managers were coming into our office and saying, hey, it's just not fair. You're running so many Craigslist ads, we don't even get a chance. So, because what I did was I actually taught, the way we do our Craigslist ads is like Google, right? You Google something, how often are you going 3 or 4 pages deep? You never are. You Google something, you go to the front page, you might go to the second page every once in a while. So we list our ads twice a day, the same ads over and over again, and we push everybody else out of the way. And so this virtual assistant did such an amazing job that none of the other property management companies in the area really had a chance. So basically all we did was take that and say, what else can I hand off? What else can I hand off? What else can I do? What else can I do? And so we started pushing everything, all these different tasks to virtual assistants, and we got a better product at the end. And part of that is because you have to sit down and write out an exact process. And if you get really good at that, the catch is, if you were really disciplined with that process and you handed that process to your American worker, you'd likely get a similar result, except for the fact that Americans typically have discretion. But nobody does processes the way they should. So even people that aren't using virtual assistants could benefit from processes, the most elite processes built, because anybody that's given a step-by-step process, if you're giving a 10-step process, hey, do this, and this, but these 10 steps, and somebody chooses to skip step number 5, well, then that's their fault, and they get to make that mistake a couple of times before they just don't make it in my company. So as long as, if our process works and somebody chooses to skip it, that's the only way they can really get in trouble. Now, as a company grows and improves and hopefully becomes more profitable, you might, somebody that's doing 5 houses a month is not going to have the same processes for somebody that's doing 20 a month. So we typically have to, you have to change. Your processes are a living, breathing organism. They're going to change over time. And you have to be willing to make those changes when the time comes. But other than that, we just look for disciplined people. And what we found is the VA is the virtual assistants are really that source.
That's so satisfying to hear, man. I could dive into this stuff all episode. I do want to find out where listeners can get more information on your product. It's a product? How would you classify it? I'm sorry.
Yeah, I call it virtually unemployed. And the reason why is because if you do everything right, the way I say it is, you could step out of your company. You should be, all of us real estate investors should be operating a company from the highest level. Mm-hmm. So I call it virtually employed, but what it is, it's a virtual assistant training system. Cool. It's a digital format, 236 total pages in this whole training system. You can find me, the easiest way is you go to realestatemat.com, and my handle on Instagram is realestatemat. That's the easiest way to find it. And you can look me up on Instagram, and I'm pretty active on that. I'm fairly new to whole social media. I really didn't get serious about social media until about 6 months ago, but that's the easiest way to find me and all that.
Awesome, man. I'll definitely put that in the show notes for people to check out, because the whole premise of the show, Real Estate Time Freedom, I think is to be somewhere where you're at, where you're working 5 hours a week, one more than Tim Ferriss on average, and, pretty much is maintaining and not really working in the business that much. I want to ask a couple questions around that before we get back into the actual real estate itself, but people are going to love this and hearing about it, because that's what, everybody who doesn't want to hear listening to this show about how you can get more time back from leveraging VAs.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. I mean, that's most of us entrepreneurs, and I was guilty of this too. Most of us entrepreneurs quit a job that we were working 40, 50, 60 plus hours a week to come in and do real estate and work 80 hours a week. You know, I mean, I've been there, I've done it. And most of us do it because we just don't know that there's a better way. That's the hard part. Like everybody talks, like even in the 4-hour work week, Tim Ferriss lays out the overall general framework on how to get to 4 hours a week or what it's like to work 4 hours a week, but doesn't give you the step-by-step process to get there. Everybody's left on their own. Like, here's the tools. You want to outsource? Talk to VAs, but it doesn't give you the step-by-step process to make that happen. That's something you have to figure out on your own. And luckily, I've been in a lot of high-level masterminds my whole life, or actually my whole business life, and that's been made a big impact on me on how I think and how to be process-driven and outsourcing. So I hope that I have some of that stuff figured out. And I mean, if you look at, I know a lot of people are faking it, man. You just never know who to believe anymore. I know I've seen that for myself as I've met people that were supposed to be big shots and really weren't. But it's legit. Like, it's like you talk to anybody, the people in my company don't even want me. They don't want me there. That's the funny part, because I'll walk in, when I was at my company a week ago for a day. I hadn't been there in 6 weeks, and before that had probably been another 6 weeks. There were people there I didn't know who they were. I mean, we have about 40 people that work in the office. We also have a warehouse. I don't know if you realize or not, but we built our own mini Lowe's. I can go into that story as well.
100%. I want to touch on that story as we progress through here.
But there were people there that they didn't know that I was the owner, and I didn't know who they were. And so the top level executive team that runs my company, they hate it when I show up, because if I see something and I say, hey, that's not how we do it, then they have to pull me aside. Matt, you're messing up our stuff here. We don't do it the way you just explained. We've changed since then. So it's kind of neat to watch the company evolve without me. Again, I'm the money behind it now. I mean, at one point, 14 years ago, when I got into real estate, I did every single job there is. And I did that for years and years and years. My first employee I hired 7 years ago, and I still have done every job times 10. I'm good at, from repetition, I'm good at a lot of the different jobs. But the cool piece is now I don't have to have every single answer. I love the fact that my team can problem solve and make decisions on their own without having to call me. I don't get that many emails anymore. It's kind of neat because in December I took a yacht trip with a few high level guys, and I had no internet really at all, and I was gone for 2 weeks. And in a 2-week period, I received where I had to respond. I received, between my text messages and emails, 6 total in my company over a 2-week period. So I averaged less than 1 text or 1 email over a 2-week period, which I thought was awesome. That's a sign that you can step away from a company, or company will operate without you. So,
man, that is amazing. And it's very rare we're interviewing someone, at the level that you're at, where your internal system is so process driven that even when you're not there, the processes are changing. It's at the point people in your own company don't even want you to come in to the mini Lowe's, the real estate office, just because you're messing up their flow of making their own processes for the business, which is pretty funny to even say and think about out loud here.
It is. And here's the other piece is to be honest with you, I was getting a little bit bored. And when I decided, like, when I was researching virtual assistants and some of the stuff we were working on, and I realized that there wasn't just good information out there. When I started the education piece 4, 5, 6 weeks ago and decided to put together my own product, it gave me something to do. Like, I have the time to invest in it. That's one of the things that I love, because I'm a hard worker. I don't want people watching this show to to think, this guy's a lazy dude. Trust me, I've put in the hours. I've worked years and years and years harder than anybody I know to get to where I'm at. So my natural instincts is to be busy, to be doing, to be involved. And that can be your worst. That can actually, being a hard worker is actually not, like, you'll always hear people say, I'm a really hard worker. I'll outwork anybody. I'll work until 10 o'clock at night. But if you do it right, you actually, that's not an advantage.
Mm-hmm.
That's a disadvantage. Having that, and it took me years to overcome that. And the right mentors in my life to overcome that. Being a hard worker is a disadvantage because you feel like you have to be the one doing. So you got to get to the point where you're doing less and outsourcing more. Otherwise, there's no exit. If you're the solution as any part of any multi-step process, there's no exit. You can never step away. So once I really understood that concept, which is probably the most important thing I've said while we've done this interview, that part is so important that without that mindset shift, I'd still be working 80 hours a week. And my company would not be running as good as it is right now. So that's the other downfall. When you're the solution, when you're a step in any multi-step process, when you're a piece of that, your company can never run as good as if you're not. And the reason is because of discretion. I'll give you another example. When I'm not involved in any acquisition stuff. We buy typically, 20, 25 houses a month, and I'm not involved. And if I was involved, it wouldn't be as good. So for example, Amanda, she's been with me for 7 years. She's involved. She's got full say so on everything we buy. She's the one and she's the one that manages the leads. She's the one that manages acquisitions, the acquisitions managers. And so for years and years and years, I was always that guy. I would be the one, hey, leads would come in. I'd say, okay, we can pay this price. Okay, we can pay this price. Okay, offer this. And I'll never forget the day I said, which was probably, I'm guessing maybe 2-3 years ago, I told Amanda, I said, I'm not going to be involved anymore. It's your decision. You know this stuff. You've helped me buy thousands of properties. You can do this on your own. So I made that shift. And within 30 days of me no longer being that guy, I used discretion. I'd see a house, I'd see the square footage, I'd see the neighborhood, and I would say, hey, I can pay that. When I built a system for her to follow, hey, here's the formula. Here's what, if it's this square footage, this is what we're going to make for rehab. And I built out a very detailed process. Our average, when I turned it to her and I stepped away, my average acquisition cost dropped by $9,000 a house. So by me being involved, I was costing myself $9,000 per house more. Because
Why is that, you think?
Huh?
Why is that, you think? Because it's interesting, like the whole principle of discretion.
Because in my mind, so with me having 14 years experience, I always knew what a good deal was. We're really good at we're good at marketing. We're good at driving leads. And a lead would come in and I'd say, oh yeah, that's, for that house, I'd pay, $34,000 or whatever. And so that was always in my mind. That's what I knew I could afford to pay. And so with her, two things happened. One, she doesn't want to make a mistake. So she naturally, her instincts are to offer less. And two, she follows a system and she knows, okay, because of this system, I can't, at the end, I do all this math, I plug this, plug all these numbers in the spreadsheet. And at the end, this says what I can offer. My old instincts were like, if I offer that low of price, they'll never accept it. Gotcha. This is the price we're offering. And then she's relaying that information to the acquisition guy. His job is to get that price accepted. So, naturally, that's kind of how it worked. I would make a price, and in her that, hers, hey, this is a system, I can't offer this. Now they're getting accepted. The same seller would accept my price, which was $9,000 higher, or her price, which was $9,000 less. Now I'm just not involved, so they never saw my $9,000 higher price. So it was Most amazing thing ever.
Yeah, that is like this whole interview has been so satisfying. It's not even me who's experiencing the benefits of it directly, but just everything you're talking about. So right now is just so satisfying, just even hearing about it. And I love that now that you have the time and really passion towards teaching this to other investors that may have been in your, in your position, which everybody is at some point.
For sure. And everybody starts kind of in the same spot. We all get started, we get excited, we learn a little bit about real estate, and we kind of just get busy. And my goal, I want to shift the whole industry. I really feel like I'm onto something, and I feel like that we can even start people out better than the reason why. You ever notice how the success rate of people that decide to buy a book on real estate or get into education of some sort? You ever realize why that success rate is so low? I mean, it's low. I mean, really, when you think about it, I don't know what the percentages are, but I know that a lot of people they try it for a minute and it just doesn't work. What I've discovered is because they're actually in their own way. I'll tell you another story that will blow your mind. We'll go back to Amanda. So I hired Amanda that works for me 7 years ago, and I hired her it was funny. She really wasn't supposed to be doing real estate. I hired her to get my Starbucks in the morning, get me a 10 o'clock snack, take my stuff, my clothes to the dry cleaners. She got my groceries. She would fill out any paperwork that needed to be filled out and shuffle papers, work with the bookkeeper, and really just busy work, the stuff that I didn't want to do. And what I decided that when I hired her, I handed off about what I thought was about 40 hours of work. And so the amazing part is when I handed it off to her, because that wasn't my unique ability, that type of thing I was slow at. I thought I was fast. I'm very confident in myself. I feel like I'm very I have a lot of skills, but that wasn't my unique ability. So what took me 40 hours to do, handed off to somebody that has that unique ability, she got it done in 15 hours. So every single day she was walking into my office, "Hey, Matt, I need more to do. Hey, Matt, I need more to do. Hey, Matt, I just got that done. What do you want me to do? I'm bored. I don't have anything to do." So I'm like, I got so frustrated. I was literally frustrated. I was like, okay. So I literally took a book and I said, "Hey, in this book, this chapter teaches you how to get a real estate agent. Read this chapter and do what it says." And then I'd walk in my office. And then she'd come back an hour later, "Hey, I read the chapter and I've got 2 new real estate agents that are ready to do some stuff for us." "Okay, great. Now this chapter talks about cash buyers. Read this chapter and do what it says and and look me up when you're done." So like a couple hours later, "Hey, Matt, I read the chapter and I've got 3 cash buyers that want properties that we might get." "Okay, great. This chapter talks about, how to get leads and how to find deals. Read this chapter and do what it says and look me up when you're done." A couple hours later, "Hey, Matt, I've got I'm going to put some ads. You care if I put some ads on Craigslist to try to find some deals?" Long story short, what happened was I literally spent that much time with her. Just read this chapter, do the work, read this chapter, do the work. I wholesaled 2 houses, made $5,000 a piece within 2 weeks of showing her how to do that. And I wasn't involved in a single piece. Light bulb went off. I'm like, I don't have to do all this stuff. So the crazy thing is, the reason why the average person buying that same book or reading a book on real estate or going to an education event, the reason they don't become successful is because of them. Because all she was just doing was her job. She was told she works for a real estate investor, so it must work. She read a chapter. It's in a book. It must work. Did the work. She got the result. And for her, it was just, I'm just doing my job. I'm just doing the work, and I'm getting the result that's expected. The average person reads the book and says, "I just don't think that'll work." So, I think that's a really big. It's just a mindset shift, and most people are in their own way. So imagine this. So imagine you decide to do what I did, and you get started in real estate, and instead of you doing the work, you hire a virtual assistant to do the work. Here's this 10-step process to find me to find a cash buyer. Follow this process. I'll hit you up later in the day. Let me know what you come up with. Later in the day, they got 50 new cash buyers. They don't know that it does real estate work or not. They just know I was giving a job, I'm to do the job, and at the end, if the process is good, I will have cash buyers. It's just the most amazing phenomenon because too many people get in their own way. And what I found is if you can get somebody started the right way and literally be lazy, not lazy in the sense of make this stuff happen, but lazy in the sense of I don't have to do everything. I don't have to be the one doing. If you can get somebody started like that, their chances of success are a lot higher because it's not them getting in their own way. It's the craziest thing, but it's totally true.
Yeah, no, dude, hearing you break it down is amazing. And I truly believe it. So the foundation is really having that mindset shift, the 4-hour, 5-hour work week mindset shift, realizing that you don't have to do everything. I'm curious because you said you're working with the new program that you have. You work with some high-level people. We know once you start hiring VAs, put processes in place, you don't have to do everything. I want to touch on two things before we kind of start at the beginning of your real estate career here.
Mm-hmm.
One, I know that you're big on personality tests and hiring.
Mm-hmm.
I kind of want to hear about that because not every CEO or every real estate operator is going to be the same. A lot of them may be, like alpha or red or type D on the disc, but they're not all going to be the same. So I want to hear your mindset around like personality types because I know that you're big on that when you hire somebody and probably in your course as far as kind of analyzing yourself. So I definitely want to hear about that.
So yes, the disc test, very big on it. In fact, again, we're so process driven in my company that nobody's allowed to hire anybody in the company without having them take a disc test first. And what we've done is we've taken every position in the company and we've clearly defined what personality type on the disc test the perfect candidate would be. So again, I don't have to be there. I don't do any of the hiring. I haven't hired somebody in a long time. So for me personally, I'm a D.
Yeah.
I'm about high as D as you can get, like 99%. Now, what I found though is to answer your question, the best employees typically are not Ds. They're C personalities. They're very, very process and detail oriented.
Perfect.
They're given a task and they just know to complete the task. I would say 75% of the people that work in my company are a C personality.
Very cool. Can we go through just to hear your breakdown?
Yep.
Could you go through the whole disc, what those personalities mean, and then maybe even like for a typical wholesaling operation, like on the acquisitions, disposition side, everybody involved, who would be the best?
Yep. So for example, D personality, that's a hard driver. That's somebody that's very goal oriented. That's gonna get. They're very competitive. The downside to a D, because every personality type has good things and bad things.
Sure.
So the upside of a D personality is they're driven, they're goal oriented, and they're very, very competitive. The downside is they'll push people out of the way and step on people and hurt feelings without even knowing they did it. I do it all the time on accident. I've gotten better at it. I'm aware of what I have to be careful about what I say, but it does happen. So that personality type is great for running a company. But would you want to put a D personality at a front desk when somebody's walking into an office as the receptionist? Absolutely not. They're going to piss everybody off that walks through that door, and they're just annoyed that they're even there bothering them. So that's a D personality. An I personality, that's more of a very outgoing, very people-oriented, love people, life of the party. If you're in a group of your friends, and everybody's got that group of friends where that one person's always texting hey, everybody, let's meet, Saturday night at this restaurant and have some food and drinks and hang out and have or somebody that's always planning the event, or somebody that's always gathering people. That's an I personality. And an I personality is great about relationships. They're truly excited to see anybody come through that door. Like, oh, I get to talk to somebody. Oh, somebody's here to say, and they're very outgoing and very, very just love people. The downside to an I is sometimes they can be sometimes on the lower end or too high of a scale is they can be distracted, or they don't want to be too aggressive on or pushy.
Mm-hmm.
So
Flip side of D, kind of.
yeah, so for example, the perfect salesperson, somebody that you would want in acquisitions, would be a high D with a strong I. So what happens is you've got a combination. You've got the hard driver, goal-oriented, competitive person, but the I tones back the rough edges and allows that personality to want to be. They see people, they care about people, they want to be around people, but they're dominant D.
Mm-hmm.
So that's the perfect sales guy. Every best salesperson I've ever met, when I had them take the DISC test, I don't even need to if I can have a conversation with somebody for 5 minutes, I can typically know what their personality type is. But the top salespeople that I've run across are DIs. Then you have the S personality. Now, an S personality is very, very steady. You give them some work to do, they're going to get it done. They might not get it done in record time, but they're very reliable. An S personality is also very, very caring of other people. Again, it's more of a relationship type personality. That S personality, if you ever see a charity, somebody that starts a charity or runs a charity or always promoting a charity, if you tested them, they'd be an S. So very, very caring about people, animals. If you're on Facebook and you always see somebody posting every day about the saving dogs from the pound, that's an S personality. Yeah. But that personality is very reliable, very loyal, and so that's a good personality type to have in a mix. If you don't want a bunch of D's in a room. They'll fight and not get along. You throw an S in there, it kind of smooths everything out, and everybody kind of gets along. And then you have the C personality. And the C, again, is my favorite for an employee, because you give them a task to do. One, it's done right. And two, so they typically start work and they finish the job. I like that. Two, the information that they give you through that job is accurate. It's right. It's correct. So the downside is that C personality doesn't always like to interact with other people. They're kind of very introverted. They just want to do their work and they don't want to have a bunch of conversations about it. So two things will frustrate a C personality. You have to be, so like I said, I've about 75% of the people in my company are C's, and I've learned what not to do. If you give a C something to do and they're very efficient, and let's say you give them 5 tasks, and these 5 tasks will take 8 hours to complete, but after 8 hours it's going to be done right and it's good. If you give them 10 tasks to do instead of 5, and they know mathematically, because they're very analytical, they know mathematically, now they have a short circuit. They're like, he wants me to have this done today. It's impossible. Short circuit, implode. You can't overwhelm a C. You got to learn what they can handle and give them what they can handle and let them do their thing. They're not typically, again, they're not going to waste a lot of time. They're not going to, hey, I'm going to go over to the coffee machine and go hang by that for 10 minutes and talk to, whoever comes by. That's the I doing that, by the way. They're very detail oriented. So that's kind of, so for my company, anybody that's in transaction coordination, anybody that's in control of the analytics, anybody that's in bookkeeping, those are great C tasks.
What's more of the assistant, like an executive assistant? Like what would Amanda be? C as well?
C. Amanda, now when I hired Amanda, I didn't really do the DISC test. I didn't even know really much about it back then. I wish I could go back in time. But it was funny because I actually had her take that test, a couple years ago, and she was 99% C.
Oh my God.
So, yeah.
So you just happened to luck out and got a 99% C. It's funny.
Yeah.
The last
it's been amazing. So
yeah, no, I love that type of stuff. DISC test. I'm definitely going to put that in the show notes too, because we talk a lot about hiring just with our community and everything like that for InvestorFuse.
By
But
the way, just a little tip too.
absolutely.
Because you can, if you do the wrong search in Google, you can find disc tests that cost money, but there's a free version that we use. So if you type in if you Google, I don't have the link in front of me, you could find it very easily. If you Google Tony Robbins disc, it'll come up in the free version, and then everybody can just use it. And again, it's just part of our hiring process. It's like when we put out an ad and leads come in, one of the first things we do is have that person take a personality test.
Yeah, I love that. That stuff, mindset, personality, all that stuff is probably the stuff I'm most interested in as it relates to business, everything like that. And it's funny hearing you break it down, because I know the last time I took that Tony Robbins, the free version, I'm kind of like how you are, like 99%, except with the I, but I have a strong D. So I'm very, very high I naturally without thinking about anything. I kind of just naturally think about how everybody's like emotions and feelings of well-being will be affected by any type of like high level or even like granular moves. But I still have a strong D where I'm like always think about goals. Like I have my goals and principles, like right in front of me at all time. And that's always kind of like the wiring, but definitely like I'm like a 98, 99% I, which is pretty funny.
Yeah. So that's also, you got a podcast show. I mean, that's that personality type. I mean, imagine if the world was filled with just nothing but D's, we'd have a lot of problems.
Yeah.
There wouldn't be stripes going down the highway. I can tell you that. And the D would be like, hey man, get out of my way. I'm taking up the whole road. You know what I mean? So it's good. And eyes are very good at building relationships. They're the best. They're the best at that. My girlfriend Trina, she tested at a 90. I think it was 96 or 7 I. And I mean, she's got a magnetic personality. Everybody, she's the one that puts together every single get together we have. If there's a holiday like Super Bowl, she's saying, hey Matt, what are we doing for the Super Bowl? Everybody loves her. She's just so magnetic that it's great for me to be dating an I as a D, because it evens us out. It's a great little good little way to keep you in check. Otherwise, I'd sit at home and read books and do work. You know what I mean?
Yeah. That's funny, man. And I do host a meetup here, an InvestorFuse meetup here in Baltimore, and a huge advocate of the principle that relationships are life. So
nice.
You're on the money there. I do want to take back, just so we've been having an amazing conversation. This is literally just like a clip that people want to hear, that are typical listeners here, just about scaling, getting time back, hiring, mindset, personality types in the hiring process, everything like that. But I do want to start back. Let's kind of go chronologically, just, how you got into real estate, your progression through there. I know you had some ups and downs, so I want to touch on the mini low. I want to go through all of that stuff in as much time as you have here. I still have about 45 minutes, but as much time as I got you for, I'd love to get a breakdown.
So I was after high school. I was an athlete in high school, played football, was pretty good.
What position?
I went to, what's that?
What position were you in football?
I played defensive line. So I decided high school gets over and I go into college, and I'm just I wasn't a great student, as you can probably imagine. I wasn't real big into homework. I hated school in general, but I love sports. So I didn't make, after one semester in college, I loved the football piece. It wasn't as fun as high school, but I was no longer in love with football, and my grades were so bad. After one semester, the college that I was going to just basically said, you can't come back. So I really didn't get a chance to quit. They just basically kicked me out. So I come back home and I'm like, I need a job. So, my dad's like, hey, there's a machine shop in town. They're hiring. Go fill out an application. So I go to work for this machine shop, and I did that type of work from 19 until I was 30 years old. And I was dating this girl, for about 4 years. And I never understood money. Like I grew up in a poor family. We lived in the worst part of town, drove the worst cars. And anytime I would ask my dad, like, hey, how did that person move into that house? Or how did they afford that car? He always said the same thing. He was like, they inherited the money. He didn't understand how money was made. And that was what his belief system was. We always just rented the houses. My parents didn't own their own home. And so I was dating this girl. and she had a master's degree, and she made really good money in the health industry. And so we were dating, and one day it hit me like a ton of bricks. She calls me up. She's like, I want to break up. And she's like, I want to date somebody with status. I want to date somebody with that makes money. And I had never thought about money before. I just knew that you get a job, you work really hard, you work a lot of hours, you work as much overtime as you can get. When vacation comes up, you cash in your vacation and take the money. And that's the only thing I really knew about making money. I didn't understand starting a business or doing flipping a house. I just never knew any about that. So all of a sudden, though, now I need to freaking figure out how to make money because I just lost my girlfriend, and I was on a mission. One, I was stressed out, and two, I just, I was up late. I didn't really know what to do. I was up late. I was watching an infomercial. Infomercial comes on. Hey, you can flip houses, no money down. Boom. I'm like, that's my in right there.
Mhm.
So I buy this book for $35, and that was really my entree into real estate. Now, I was so naive, and I had so much belief that I could do real estate that I believed every single word, and nobody could tell me different. Again, D personality, right?
Mhm.
You don't want to get in an argument with a D because they're always going to win. And even if that you don't win, they're not convinced. Like they know that they're the ones with the right answer. So I read this book. I'm like, I can do real estate. Immediately, I was a real estate investor just like that. So that was 2005, and November of 2005, I basically did my first deal in 30 days, and within a 3-year period, I had built up enough, starting with no cash. I built up enough cash flow. I had about 30, I think it was like 31 or 2 properties, and I had about 5,000 a month in net cash flow after all expenses were paid. So fast forward 3 years later, November of '08, the market had crashed, and it was terrible. Like it was literally like the world was coming to an end. But I had enough cash flow and a little bit of money in the bank. I had about $20,000 or so saved up at that point. But I had experience. I really knew what I was doing because I had done 30 something deals. So I took that in '08 and just went all in. I quit my job. Now I'm full-time real estate. Now instead of working, 60 hours a week at my job and then doing real estate on the side, I have all my time just to do real estate. And I go into '08 with, like I said, 5,000 a month in cash flow and about 20 grand in the bank. And then by 2013, I had 450 houses in my portfolio and over $1 million in cash saved up. So that was really the whole that what propelled me into where I'm at now. Now I'll go. I think you know the story about what happened to me with property management.
Mhm.
So 2 years later, 2015, I have 450 houses or so. I have. I'm not managing my own properties at this time. I have a property manager. And September 22nd, 2015, I get a phone call, and my property manager, I was supposed to meet her that day. I was in the process of firing her. I hadn't been paid any rent money in 2 months. So take 450 houses times an average of $900 a month in rent. She had kept all that rent plus all my security deposits for 450 houses plus all my maintenance reserves. I was supposed to meet her that day, and she attempted suicide.
Hmm.
Didn't die. But what I found was all my money's gone. So it was over $1 million total. That was literally gone out of my life that I'll never get back. That was totally gone. But even worse, when she couldn't just walk away, she deleted all the property management software. I had no keys. I had no leases. I had no applications. I couldn't even convince, like I have 450 houses. It's September 22nd. The October 1st is in 8 days, and I live in another state. So I have to then scramble to get back into Iowa to figure out how to get to 450 houses post notices on doors and convince those people to start sending me the rent money. And so it was one of the worst things I ever went through. So not only did I lose all that money, but then all of a sudden my tenants are bailing as fast as possible, and they don't know what's going on. People are saying, "You're not my landlord. That other person is. Show me the deed to your property." I mean, I had to literally convince my tenants that they owed me the rent money. So some of the rent money was still going into the old property manager's account. And long story short, I was bleeding at $100,000 a month for 8-9 months in a row, on top of the money I had already lost. And I almost went, I was literally down to $20,000-$30,000, and I thought I was going out. I mean, I was like, okay, I've been in real estate now for, at that point, it was 10 years. And I'm like, everything that I built, my 450 houses, is gone. I ain't going to make it. So luckily, I had saved a lot of money. So she took my money, but I had 7 figures liquid. Now most of that's gone at this point. I'm down to my last few bucks, and I get just enough momentum that I start selling some houses. And so 2016, I was still bleeding. By the end of 2016, I started really selling houses. In 2017, I flipped 334 houses and made multi-millions of dollars in profit. And that literally got me my money back, or a lot of it, and put me back in the driver's seat. I had cash flow. All my properties were rented. I was able to sell a lot of properties. I sold off a big portion of my portfolio that year. I sold probably 200 houses out of my portfolio. And really, the cool part is, anytime you go through something really, really terrible, you end up, if you have the right mindset, you know that you're being tested, right? You're in, it's school time, and you got to figure out the formula to make it work. And what happened was, the most amazing thing is I took those lessons, and I kept telling myself, because I was working, like, during this whole time period, late 2015, 2016, 7 days a week, 15 to 18 hours a day, every single day for 7. It was brutal. But what ended up coming out of it, I kept telling myself, this is I'm going to create the greatest company that's ever lived. And I'm going to take everything that's bad to happen to me, and I'm going to figure out how to make it amazing. And so by the time 2017, I'd sold all those properties. I got my millions of dollars back, and I'm back on the map. I buy a new building. I move into an 18,000 square foot building, and I built this amazing property management company and this real estate company. And what happened was, I now control. I got really, really good at property management really fast, because I had to learn it overnight. And so with that, I created processes that ended up being, just amazing way to manage properties. We do some very, very unique stuff that probably a lot of people don't do. And it was just out of necessity. But the cool part is to kind of transition into my mini lows in early 2017. I made a trip over to Moline, Illinois. There's a Lowe's store over there. I walk in, and they knew me like I was like a celebrity in this Lowe's store, because we were there every day buying materials. And the store manager comes up to me, and he goes, "Hey, Matt, I just want to let you know that, this is the early 2017. He's like, 2016, we had a pretty good year with you." And he's like, you spent $2.2 million in this store in 2016. And I'm like, wow, I did? And he's like, yeah, and we do about $22 million in total sales a year. You're 10%. And I immediately thought, man, I need to get a better deal here. I'm 10% of the business out of this store. So I call a meeting with him, and I'm like, hey, I want to talk about a discount. And he goes, Matt, we don't need to talk discounts. He's like, I already give you the best price, just like I give everybody the best price. You walk into the store, you got the best price. And so I was just, that set wrong with me. So I go and rent. I tell my team, I come back to my office, and I'm like, hey, we're going to start our own warehouse. And I pull one of the gals that worked in bookkeeping, because she was very detail oriented, and she watched every penny that came for the company. So I tell her, I'm like, hey, take all of our low spend, the 2.2 million. I said, we rented a 3,500 square foot warehouse right up the street. And I signed a 1-year lease for $1,300 a month. And I was like, man, if this doesn't work and I'm just plain stupid, I can't lose that much. $1,300. I sign a year lease, no big deal. If I use it for 2 months, I'll write a check for the rest of the year. Call good. So I get her started. I'm like, here's the spend. Quote everybody. Quote Menards. Quote Lowe's. Quote Home Depot. Wilmar. HD Supply. All these companies. Amazon Business. Send them the bid. Tell them we'll put $100,000 of product on the shelf, and we'll make bulk purchases, and we'll agree to a year-long deal if the price is good. So she starts bidding it, and after 30 days, she's like, "Hey, we're saving $40,000 a month by buying it direct." I'm like, "How much are we saving off price?" She's about 40%. So we saved 40% off of what if you walked into Lowe's and bought something off the shelf, we were buying that same product for 40% less. And after 30 days, I walk in there and I'm telling you, we built shelves out of plywood and 2x4s. That's how we didn't know what we were doing. We just put up some shelves and put some stuff on there and kind of organized it. And after 30 days, she's like, we had about 2,400 SKUs that we warehouse now. At that point, we're only at 400 and we're busting at the seams. We have no space left. She's like, we need a new building. So that day I find a new building, which is the building we're in now. I ended up buying, it's 18,000 square feet. And we hold about 2,400 SKUs. We have a whole online store that we built from scratch that we can log into. It's not like something that we don't sell anything publicly. This online store is just for our own use. It's all integrated in with Podio. We have our own barcode system. We're buying stuff at now up to 70% discount. Great. Just in paint cost. By doing what we're doing, we saved over $150,000 a year just in paint alone, which pays for the building by itself, not counting the other 2,399 SKUs. Mm-hmm. So we have a very distinct advantage over everybody else because we can, all things being equal, we're paying so much less for materials than everybody else. It's almost a non-issue. Materials are almost not even part of the equation anymore. It's pretty crazy. So now if you walk in, we built all these plywood and 2x4 shelves. Now, if you walk in, we actually brought an engineering firm in like a year or so ago, maybe a year and a half ago now, that did this CAD drawing of our whole building and then told us which shelves to buy. So now we just got these, all these professional, just like at Lowe's, the same type of metal shelving, all optimized. And so, it's very organized, our own. I mean, it's pretty impressive. I don't know of anybody else doing that type of thing in the entire country. I've had some of the biggest players in the country fly to my office on a private jet, just to see it. And all of them have the same reaction. Their jaw drops to the floor and they just can't believe what they're seeing. I've had guys fly in, look at it, just ask me a million questions and say, "Hey, I need to bring my CEO in here. Can I fly him in here a couple weeks?" And then they're flying it's pretty amazing. I'm pretty proud of it. And the best part is I came up with the idea. I put my team on it. They're the ones that did all the work. They're the ones that figured it out. I don't know anything about inventory. I don't know anything about QuickBooks and, making it all work with Podio and QuickBooks and this online store. They built everything. I just came up with the idea. So it just reinforces the whole point of hiring right, making sure, taking the time to hire the right people. And if you do hire the right people, the best people remove complexity out of your life. I didn't have to figure that out. I just figured out the who, they figured out the how. So pretty cool.
Yeah, extremely cool. And when I first heard that story about the mini Lowe's, and not just that in itself, not only how you're able to get deals, or you're able to get more deals by being able to offer more, and how stuff like paint even paints the building. And I feel like I heard a few examples of that on an interview, but the quote that this reminded me the most of, or the principle it reminded me the most of, is a book, Atomic Habits. And one of my favorite principles from there, it says, a good player works hard, like somebody working 60, 70, 80 hours a week, and they work hard, but they're playing the same game that everybody else is. A great player makes their own game, and they make their own rules where it goes towards their strengths and eliminates their weakness. So you've just been able to do this, just like between the overcoming, mental scarcity, which nobody can really control their formative years when they're a child, and the different programs and mindsets that they have. You overcame that, learning about money, and then just the mindset of just like outsourcing everything. It's and even your story here of getting into real estate, having that massive success, having the issue with the outsourced property management's a very like it has a very fitting like heroic story as far as like the arc of the story that you tell, and just that principle too of just like you're really just making your own game with everything you're doing, like no one else is really doing in the country. So it's awesome to hear about.
Yeah, I can tell you that some of these lessons were pretty tough lessons to learn.
Sure.
It's like I going back. There's time I just at the time you wish you weren't doing it. You wake up in the morning and vomit, and then you start your day. That's literally some of the stuff that I've been through with some of the bad stuff that has happened. And but you look back, and it's the greatest thing that ever happened to you. It literally became the raw material you needed in order to build the life and lifestyle that you've got now. So that's one word of advice I would give most people is don't wish for easy. That's not going to get you where you're going. If you go to the gym every morning and you can lift 100 pounds and you lift 20 pounds, but do a whole bunch of reps, that's not going to build muscle, right? You got to get in there and you got to work it. You got to lift as heavy as you can. And that will give you strength. And, the old saying, a good sailor's never made on calm seas. And so I was, some of those days were tough, but I'm glad I'm in the position I'm in now. It's really been worth it.
Yeah, man, I love that. Another thing too, just on the mental side, just how you're able to utilize frameworks, like even in the beginning. And like you said, like anytime someone would have kind of like a victim mindset, or they perceive it as something negative happening, you automatically see that as like a learning experience. And also kind of like the high D stubborn too, when you're just, you read a real estate book and you're just like, all right, this is going to work for me. When you get the Lowe's discount, that's the high D.
Right.
It's not the best discount I'm going to get, so I'm going to make my own Lowe's store.
Yep.
So 2 principles, guys, from Matt that are amazing. Simplify as much as possible, and then simplify more, and then systematize everything. Because if I heard correctly in another interview, you were able to go to $1 million just with 2 people, and you
right.
start systemizing everything. And you do something similar to what we do in our company in InvestorFuse that we call or we originally called it, essentially what it is it's an exhaustive task sheet. And essentially you just write out to granular level detail every single thing you do in a day. So even me, as I'm working on processes for doing podcasts, this is almost like the surgeon, like a surgeon, like this is a surgeon doing surgery. This is the one thing, me actually conducting the interview, that I can't delegate out if I'm the one hosting the show. Everything else can be processed, from me talking to Amanda, who set up the interview. Shout out to Amanda. She's awesome. I'm going to have to download this off Zoom. Then I'm going to have to put it on. Then I'm going to have to chop it up on a program called ScreenFlow. Then I'm going to have to make like a title, all that type of stuff, upload it to Lisbon, where it goes to all the podcasting platforms, YouTube. So all that stuff are processes that I'm working on. I want to hear your best advice on systematizing for someone that just has like an assistant or just one other person. And then I want to transition that into kind of what your wholesaling and flip business looks like from soup to nuts. If we have time, we can do a shorter version as far as like all the marketing you're doing, lead gen, but we'll start with the systematizing and one other employee.
Yeah. So here's the thing is first of all, start your systematizing everything early. It's easier if you do it soon. So every time you can make a decision that you're going to repeat yourself forever, or you can make a decision you're only going to repeat yourself once. And so write down every single detail. Have your assistant actually do this. Whoever you train, like I don't do a lot of systems. I might have done a lot in the very beginning, but now I just have whoever does that job, they're required to build their system. And here's the rule of my company. This will be maybe something everybody in the show will remember. Your system should be so good that when you hand it off to, let's say you bring in a replacement in for yourself. Let's say you're going to leave the company for a year and go on a private island with no cell phone service. Your system should be so good that you can hand off your system to your replacement, and in 10 minutes, they're doing the job as good as what you are. That's a perfect system. Every single word you say, every piece of script, every process, every screenshot, every single move, everything. That's how good your system should be. That you hand it off, 10 minutes, they're good, and they never have to call you to ask you for help. So a lot of times somebody will have a pretty good system. Like we'll create one in the company and they'll hand it off and I'll be like, okay, how'd it go when you trained your new one? Well, they had a few questions. Okay, well, did you change your process on those questions to make sure you never have to repeat yourself again? Those are the kind of things that I look for is if it's not a 10-minute transition, you didn't do it good enough. It's not right. Add more to it. Make it so, hey, if you had to, if somebody says, hey, the phone rings and I got to say this, that should be in your process, every single word. So that's the big thing about systemizing is it should be so good there's never a question. Read through it once, you're good to go. That's the perfect system. That's what we build. So that's the first part of that. And what was the second question you had for me there?
We're just going to go through your operation right now, kind of like soup to nuts, like everything you're doing for marketing. If you want to touch on like volume that you're doing right now. And are you even setting up the marketing at this point? Or do you have someone?
I don't do it. I haven't done it in a long time.
Yeah,
but to answer your question, I can tell you. So we do a lot of cold calling. We do a lot of texting. We do direct mail, 5,000. So I think we do 3,000 cold calls a week. We do 5,000 direct mail pieces a week. We do thousands of text messaging. I have 10 maintenance vans, 15 total company vehicles, 10 maintenance vans running all over town with We Buy Houses on the back. So we get a lot of leads from that. We buy stuff from wholesalers. What else? We get a lot of referrals just because we've done so many deals over the years. I bought my own dumpster truck and 15-yard dumpsters that have We Buy Houses on it. So we get leads from that. You name it. I mean, we've done it. The only thing we're really not doing right now, we're not doing any TV. We're not doing any radio, but basically everything else we do. Our volume always hovers, 20 to 30 houses a month. That can fluctuate here and there, but it's pretty consistent. In fact, I just closed on, I'm in Davenport. Des Moines is 2.5 hours away. I'm starting the Des Moines market. We just closed on a 5-plex there today. I basically, in my market, 20 to 30 is about as max as you can get. We're the largest player in town. The next closest guy is probably doing 2 or 3 a month. So we kind of own that market. So we're very, very heavy on marketing. That never shuts off. We always have leads coming in. We're always buying houses.
Yeah.
And then what other part of that do you want me to dive into?
Nothing specifically. I want to bring back a point though that the trucks on average are bringing in 1 deal each per year. So Matt, it's just funny seeing just patterns of behavior here. It's like he's just constantly making his own rules, which is it's interesting, satisfying, and funny to me. But yeah, I love that too. How you're just bringing stuff on where they're paying for itself too. Whether it's the trucks, the mini lows, everything's just fascinating. And of course, one of the reasons he's doing so many deals is because he's been able to establish himself as the authority where, a lot of the times wholesalers just reach out to you either to move a deal or sell you a deal, which is super, super cool.
Yeah. So the maintenance vans is, with us managing over 1,000, maybe it's close to 1,100 properties now. That's not units, that's properties. We needed maintenance guys, right? And I used to have everybody just drove their own vehicle. We would reimburse some mileage. And so 2 years ago, I was like, hey, we're missing a huge opportunity here. By not having a company vehicle, nobody knows that we buy houses. So we bought, in a 2-week period, we bought 10 Ford Transit vans. And then we had those lettered up with our company logos on the side. And then the entire back is in huge letters, "We buy houses," and our phone number. And at the time that I did that, my CFO was like, "Man, you are stupid. That is the worst. That's the worst idea on the planet. That'll never make money. You're going to have tires. You're going to have maintenance. You're going to have oil changes. You're going to have breakdowns. That'll never make money." And within like 30 days, I had already bought a house from somebody calling the back that we made $20,000 on, which paid for that van forever now. So so that worked. And then 6-8 months ago, with the dumpsters, the 15-yard dumpsters, I was at my lake house and I was just sitting around the fire, having a couple of drinks. And one of my friends that owns his own real estate company came over, and he's like, we were talking, and I hadn't hung out with this guy a ton, just a little bit. We were just kind of getting to know each other. But he was talking, and I mentioned my company name, and he goes, "Wait, what's your company name?" And I told him, and he's like, "Man," he goes, "my buddy owns a dumpster company, and he says you're his best customer." He's like, "I just didn't know that was your company." I'm like, man, again, Lowe's story all over again. I'm like, so I call this guy up with this dumpster company. I'm like, "Hey, I need a better deal." Nope, we've already given you the best deal. Hung up the phone, went to my team. We're buying our own dumpsters. So I spent $100,000 on a truck and 20 15-yard dumpsters, and we buy houses on them. And literally, like, that was the last day we ever bought we ever paid somebody else for a dumpster. So we went from spending $20,000 a month renting dumpsters from another company to $12,000 a month by having our own. We saved ourselves $8,000, $100,000 a year, which is what I spent on the dumpsters. So it was amazing. So those are the types of things we're always looking for scale. We're always looking for volume. You know what I mean? Here's the cool part. We could rent our dumpster. I could probably put everybody in town out of business in the dumpster business, because now I can rent dumpsters cheaper than everybody else because I'm using it as advertising. I can put "We Buy Houses" on the side, rent my dumpsters to somebody else, and my dumpsters are sitting in front of somebody else's house. Somebody drives by, sees "We Buy Houses," thinks, "Man, that guy must buy houses because he's got a dumpster in front of a house that's getting worked on." Call me up and I get the lead.
Love that.
It's crazy.
A wealth of inspiration, knowledge, and maybe the best thing, in my opinion, even for me, who's working on processes a ton this quarter and this year, is just framework and mindsets to work from as the foundation is super enlightening, man. So I appreciate you coming on. It's been an hour and 18 minutes of just straight, value bombs and stuff like that. But what's your final piece of advice here as we're putting a bow on this thing and ending the interview?
My final piece of advice for people is, early on, you need to make a decision whether you're going to be working 1,000,000 hours or are you going to be enjoying life. The best part is you can have the best of both worlds. You can enjoy life and make more money, but you have to be disciplined enough to say, "No, I'm not doing that. I'm going to outsource it." It's a discipline, and it's writing amazing processes. If you can have discipline to outsource and write amazing processes for dirt cheap, you can have both time and money. That's the best thing I can leave your whole audience with.
Love it. You guys are probably going to rewatch or re-listen to this episode. Highly suggest doing so. For everything Matt, what he has to offer, and to follow him on social, check out the show notes. And appreciate you guys listening. Matt, appreciate you, man. An inspiration. Appreciate how you choose to live your life. Truly a awesome story and dude there. So awesome time.
Thanks for having me, man. I really enjoyed it.